over a week, Syria has witnessed intense clashes between the forces of dictator Bashar al-Assad's regime and opposition armed groups. Assad's forces have withdrawn from Aleppo, the second largest city in Syria, while opposition's forces claim to have taken control of Hama. Government troops and Russian military personnel are reportedly retreating.
The Syrian government, army and Russian military units are suffering significant losses, abandoning their positions, weapons and equipment in a disorderly retreat. In the city of Hama, where clashes are ongoing, Arab-Russian translators are being urgently deployed, likely to assist Russian officers trying to stabilize Assad's troops. From the message of the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on Telegram.
Russian troops first arrived in Syria in September 2015 at Bashar al-Assad's invitation. Their intervention allowed Assad's regime to expand its control from 15% to 70% of Syria's territory. The methods used were notoriously brutal. Human rights organizations documented the use of cluster munitions, chemical weapons, and prolonged sieges that starved civilian population. However, after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Moscow reduced its military presence in Syria. Analysts believe the remaining forces are insufficient to provide substantial support to Assad.
Russia and Putin find themselves in a tough spot. On one hand, failing to adequately support Assad would effectively spell the end of his regime, which is already on shaky ground. On the other hand, maintaining even a semblance of stability in Syria requires far more resources than Russia currently has in the region. The only potential reinforcements would have to come from the Russian-Ukrainian front, but pulling troops from there is not an option. Putin seems to be hoping the situation resolves itself.
Another ally of the Assad regime is Tehran. Since the start of the anti-government protests in Syria in 2011, which escalated into a civil war, Iran has been sending soldiers from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to support the Syrian regime. Tehran was also the first to express its backing for Syria amid the recent internal escalation.
The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms its full support for Syria, its government, people and army. As we stood with them in the past, we will continue to stand with them in the future.
However, sources from Reuters suggest that Iran is currently hesitant to send Hezbollah forces to Syria, as they are engaged in the ongoing conflict with Israel. Despite this, around 300 pro-Iranian militants reportedly crossed the Iraq-Syria border on December 2nd. Analysts believe that while Tehran is primarily focused on the war in Israel, its support for Assad remains significant, largely for religious reasons.
For Iran, the war in Syria is a way to expand the influence of Shia Islam. This religious division was one of the triggers for Syria's religious conflict. With over 80% of Syria's population being Sunni Muslims, who are ideological opponents of the Shia minority, Assad's promotion of Shia dominance has inevitably led to deep-rooted tensions.
The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has accused Russia and Iran of being responsible for the largest escalation in Syria's civil war. The ministry emphasized that Bashar al-Assad's regime, which has terrorized its own population for decades, is a puppet of Moscow and Tehran. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine called for adherence to UN Security Council resolutions that demand a ceasefire, humanitarian aid and negotiations between the warring parties. Reported by Bastun Katerina, Andriy Dmitrenko, UATV News.